And we're live.
And we're hanging out. I'm Bear.
I'm Alan. This is our show. We're talking about art. If you like what you hear today, you can find more about us on our Facebook page, Hanging Out Podcast. We started a group. You can send us your questions, your thoughts, your critiques, hangingoutpodcast@gmail.com. We started a Patreon. If you like it, give us $1. If not, we're going to keep making these episodes. Bear, what's up?
Man, I started a job today.
And that was the podcast. We'll see you next week or never.
It's the Alan, Hanging Out with Alan podcast.
No, it's the Alan Show.
The Alan Show from now on.
Over. Yeah. Why'd you get a job? Well, you talked about this. You said that you got a job two podcasts ago? Did we talk about this?
We talked about the interview. I did get the job, everyone, and I started today, and it's inspired by our very good friend Josh Hass, who was on the show, and all the other illustrators we had on the show who said that they worked and painted for a long time and struggled to make it work, but made it happen. So
it is weird that there are themes that, this is episode 29. We're almost at the big 3-0. It's weird the amount of people that we've had on. We've been lucky enough to get some good guests, and constant themes come up. One of them is that, and I'm going to use Mark Chef's words here from a Facebook post he did. Making art is cool, but having the money to pay your bills so that you can do art is even cooler, or something like that. I butchered it, but
no, it's totally cooler, and it gives you, it's like such a relief now knowing that I have that steady paycheck, and whenever I paint, I don't have to be always thinking so heavily about what's going to look good for a portfolio piece or what's going to be the best. I can just focus on what I want to paint and develop kind of more freely.
Right. As long as you don't stagnate. That would be my only worry if I ever had to get a job, but I've never done it. So I don't know. How do you feel right now? Do you think you feel that?
It's a constant back and forth motivation. Now I have the job. It's great. I have the money, but it's not what I want to do forever.
But you just started it today. Well, you've had jobs before. We should say that. You've had, like 4 jobs in the last 2 years?
I've done a lot of different things, and that's mostly just because I know that I want to paint, and it's figuring out what I'll be happy doing and what will make the best money outside of painting until that can become a reality. And this has been it.
So tell me about your job. Give me the spark notes on your job.
It's a marketing coordinator position for a nonprofit child development center here in Tennessee.
All right.
It's a 30-year-old company. They do a lot of great work. I'd so much rather enlist any of my talents for a nonprofit than a company, and it's a whole lot harder to get a marketing job like this with any company, or not for-profit company, because it's so competitive. So it's easier to edge your way into the nonprofits.
So what do you think led to you getting a marketing job? I feel like, of course, the nonprofits, right? But those are something you liked. But what led you to the marketing aspect? Like, what made you feel qualified? What was interesting?
Well, I've over the past year, we've talked about it in a few episodes, I've been steady working with local businesses just to do some basic web design and web marketing, SEO management, that kind of stuff. And because I was really working towards a more stable position where I could do all of that for somebody permanently. And it just so happened that it was a marketing coordinator position, and I could slide into that and use all of my skills, including design skills, because I'm also doing all of the print stuff and the web stuff. Anything that has to be made for the marketing, I have to do.
Right. Okay. So here's a question that I have heard tossed around a lot in some art communities, and pose it to you, because I think what was your first job out of school? So you've been the swim coach, but that was or you were an assistant swim coach, right?
Yeah, I was assistant college swim coach, and then
you did the framing.
When we moved to Tennessee, I worked at the graphic shop for half a year.
Okay, and then you jump to the record store
And
slash
then
bar.
record store, and then part of that was also doing a few websites for businesses and starting to do the web stuff then. And now is the official marketing position.
So it's definitely been a few different jobs and different positions or positions in your life experiences. So the question I want to ask is, if you're someone coming out of art school, if you want to be an artist and you're looking into getting a job, do you think that a job that's very closely related to the creative art that you do, do you think that inspiration goes over? Or do you think that when you get home from a creative job, you're so drained already from that creative fluid that you're like, okay, I don't want to paint? My question is, do you think a job around creativity is better to boost creativity in the home or not?
Yes.
Why? Like, give me your experience. So like when you were, I don't know, at the graphic shop or at the record store, were you developing websites using creative energy, and that was that driving your paintings, and how?
I don't really run out of creative energy. I get sad and I have depressed times like everyone else, but I'm always creating in those times. And I think that especially in this job where I'm constantly creating while I'm at work, it gives me a space to explore other ideas and maybe sometimes even be told what to do, so I can create and be creative without having to form whole ideas and stress myself so much about it. And then I can come home with a fresh batch of processes and ideas and different ways to create and think about things. For me, it all feeds back into itself.
See, yeah, that's how I've always felt. I hear people talk about it, but when we were in school, for instance, in school, the way that it was done for me, at least, was, I like to get some full time in school. It was basically another job, doing your homework. But I never felt, even though we had creative classes, I never felt drained. What I thought, and what I've always thought, is if you have a creative job, unless you're actually illustrating or painting at your job, what I always thought is it teaches you how to quantify that creativity, how to schedule that creativity and keep it kind of contained and understand it.
And you get the added benefit of any job is going to be a whole lot of learning. And if you can tie a creative process into that and see how a business handles it and how it's organized and scheduled, like you're talking about, and the official professional way of doing it, it's really beneficial.
It's crazy to me, again, on constant themes, is like there is this, I think, almost I can say overbearing theme of an artist in school, or the lifestyle of an artist. And it comes down to a person that's like, oh, I'm just going to live this lifestyle and only create when I'm inspired. I mean, Pete talked about it in the Art Academy. We saw it all the time in our own school. But again and again, creative, successful people have told us, and what you're learning through your jobs is, that's not true at all. It's that quote, I only paint when I'm inspired. Thankfully, I'm inspired every morning at 6 o'clock sharp or something like that. And it's like, no, the actual way to be a successful creator is to be creating on this contained schedule and to drive yourself. That was a little bit of a tangent. Tell me about your job.
Well, no, that tangent is totally justified. Even Chuck Close said, and I've said it 100 times, I'll say it 100 more, his best work came out of work itself. And it's true with me. I was the same way. I was trying to be extremely creative and edgy and inspired, but once I sat down and just started actually painting every day is when I started to create paintings.
Right. And that flow. People ask on groups sometimes, like, what is the key to continued work as an artist? And the answer is create a routine for yourself so that you can instantly click yourself into that mood of creation again. Whether it's a studio door that you walk into. I've heard of writers that listen to the same song every day when they start writing, because it becomes not noise to them, but a cue to get their mind in that set. And everyone has those things. It's like when you brush your teeth before bed. It's like you brush your teeth, oh, time to go to bed. Your mind starts developing that melatonin.
No, it's a very true thing. When I was coaching, I had an athlete who every day before practice went through the same routine. He got there an hour early, put his headphones on, he went through his whole stretching routine, and the whole process has got his mind ready to train hard for the next 2 hours. And it's like you're talking about.
Yeah, it sounds familiar actually. Every morning before the gym, I've started to notice I have a routine. And if like one thing goes wrong in that routine though, I'm out of it. And it's almost scary to me if one thing goes wrong before I start hammering out some weights. But,
Right. That's why I paint all over the place. I paint on the couch, I paint in the guest room, the garage, the desk. I like to mix it up.
So we have a lot to talk about. So let's move through it. So you make websites, you manage websites for and events and stuff for the job?
I manage the website now. There's a team that manages the website pretty much, but not a team of like designers, just people that work there. It's a Wix website, so a few people have access to it and update everything. I'll just be changing the design here and there and doing a little of the technical stuff.
You know, I think Wix is a German word for genitalia, but anyway, something like that.
It's fitting after spending a day with it. However,
yeah, I hear that Wix is terrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah, doing that, all of the print designs and making and ordering, and of course all the social media management and doing the design work for those things.
Okay. Okay, that sounds cool. I can't wait to see how that goes. I think it's right up your alley. And I think it's it's one of those cool jobs where it's almost like what do you call it? Multiple. I'm losing my words today. It has different values. Like the skills that you learn at that job will continue into the rest of your life.
Yes, and that's what I'm very much excited about. They're very happy to have me there. They're said it over and over, and I couldn't tell them how happy I was to be there to learn what all I'm about to learn, especially in the nonprofit world, because the way they do things, there's a lot to gain.
Yeah, I mean, you could learn how to write you could be really involved in like writing a grant and then bring that over into opening a gallery later, you know?
Exactly.
So your 8 hours today was actually just someone looking at you and saying, thank you. And then you look back at them and say, thank you. And that was your 8 hours. You just
pretty much, it was an 8-hour long stare off.
Okay.
I never actually got through the door. We met before I got in.
So, did they blink or did you blink first? Like what's more polite?
A lot of awkward blinking.
Oh, there was a lot of okay.
It was fearful almost.
Oh, okay. No, I get that. So you got a Surface Pro.
I got the Surface Pro. Surface Book, actually. Again,
we need
inspired by Josh.
We need to get Josh back on the show and tell him he's responsible for all of your decisions.
Well, I think that's why we started the show, is so we could care ourselves. We could talk about what we were going through as young artists, developing, and we're learning as we go through it, as I hope some of our listeners are, and we're listening to what our guests are saying.
Well, I know that other artists out there use the Surface Pro, or you have the Cintiq Companion now.
I have the book.
Well, yeah, you don't have the Cintiq Companion, but other people do.
Yeah.
And so artists have that, and I know there are other people doing it, but like I've seen him do it several times now, where Josh just straight pulls out his Surface in a bar. He's done it in a bar in both cases, and just starts clicking through layers or drawing over something in Photoshop, and it's like, wow, what is this?
It's
so now
crazy.
You can do that.
It's very convenient, and it's very nice because even just with, say, Kelsey being upset that I was staying up late, now I can go in the bed and we can watch True Detective and I can paint the whole time.
So have you done any finished work on your Surface yet, or are you still getting the hang of it? Or
I haven't done any finished work, oddly enough. I have like 5 different projects going on it since last weekend, but really just trying to feel it out. It's the Surface Book 2. It's the baseline model with the i5 processor. Everyone said it would be kind of bleh, not do what you want it to do, but it's perfect for Photoshop and Illustrator. And I find that the Surface Pen doesn't have very many differences from the Wacom Pen. as far as sensitivity and drawing goes. It feels the same. It's just a lot nicer being able to draw directly on the screen.
Yeah, so people get into sensitivity and all that. What I'm interested in as an artist, and what I'm sure you were interested in, is what did the price versus what did the cost versus value look like for that?
For me, man, it's such a revolutionary piece of technology for me. You've been able to draw on your screen for so long, but for me, it's totally worth what it cost in my eyes. If you can afford the Surface Book 2 just came out with its cheapest model is I think $1,200. If you can afford the book, I think it's nice because it comes with a full keyboard that you can detach the tablet from.
Okay.
But the actual tablet, the Surface Pro, doesn't come with that hard keyboard that I like. So if you have less money to spend and you don't really care about the keyboard, get the Surface Pro. It's the same tablet, just different storage, different keyboard.
Okay. So do you think you're going to see, I guess what I'm asking is like, for $1,200, I think you could have bought what is it, like the 16-inch Cintiq for maybe a few $100s more. Like, do you think you're going to see more benefits out of this?
I do, because I can't take the Cintiq to bed with me or to the couch or everywhere. I don't draw on my laptop. That's the other thing, is I needed to replace my laptop because it's dying.
Okay. I see that. Yeah, I just looked up the Surface Book 2 with the i5, and you're right. Yeah, I see them on Amazon for like $1,300, $1,200. So that's cool. Yeah, do it. So that's not a lot. I mean, I've been in situations, something Donato said, I've brought it up so many times, is anytime that I question a purchase, like when you go to conventions or when you buy paper for prints or when you buy the Cintiq or the thing that you're drawing on the Surface, how can you expect other people to invest in you or your art if you're not willing to? And to be honest, in the grand scheme of things, I used to think $1,200 was a big buy, but then I started paying $600 for empty pieces of floor on a convention space.
Yeah,
it's not. That just kind of blows your mind sometimes.
I think the money is important to consider, and you're right. You're making an investment towards your art, and I think you should make the most of whatever technology is available. And
if you could go back in time, would you have bought it right out of art school or in art school?
I wouldn't have then, because I think now is the best time to buy one, because the technology is finally there. It's finally very, very good. Where you have one of the Cintiq knockoffs, where back then the ones that you could plug up to the computer were fairly good, but they couldn't operate on their own. Where now the technology is advanced for tablets and laptops that the touch.
Well, if you were in school right now,
oh, definitely.
Would you buy one?
If I had the money, if I had the money and I had worked harder in school, and it was right now, I would buy one.
I think a lot of people. So I'm going to jump into something here. A lot of people go into school now, buy MacBooks. Like that's the go-to college computer now. It's like, oh, okay, my little girl or boy is going to school. They need a good computer. I'm a good parent. Let me, maybe I can't get them a car, but I can get them this like $2,000 MacBook thing. My cousin did it. Her parents bought her like the highest end MacBook Pro, and I'm over here like, she doesn't need that. She's gonna be using this for like Adobe for
Word,
basic for Word and the presentation one, the PowerPoints and recording things.
Well, no, this is important, and I think if you are entering art school and required to buy a computer, you need to get a Surface Book 2. You need to. If you want the ability to draw and work in the Adobe art space and have a laptop that you can run Word on and do all of your college BS on, you don't need a MacBook.
You don't need a MacBook.
I'm laying down the gauntlet.
Or what I would say, if I could go back in time, what I would do is I would have gotten like this. I don't know. I like the idea of having a tower and a Cintiq, but if you're going to classes and things like that, I mean, you're buying $1,200 books. Buy a $1,200 Surface Pro. But no. So get a Surface Pro or a computer or something specifically for Photoshop and Illustrator and all of that. And then if you really want something that watches Netflix, go get like an Amazon TV stick or go buy a smaller like Asus computer just for play. Have a professional computer and have a personal computer and split the cost. If you split a $3,000 Mac down the middle, you can very easily get a Surface Pro and a decent computer.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
That's for those of you with lined pockets.
And so what I wanted to get into is a lot of people go into college being oil painters, go in drawing, things like that. There are so many artists I know. Actually, I would be willing to say most of the artists I know do their preliminary sketches and color studies on the computer just because it's faster. I think Donato does not, but like Scott Fisher does his preliminary drawings.
Right. It's faster. It's convenient. And, you know, you don't have to carry around a sketchbook all the time. If you have one of these in your backpack or just wherever, you just pop it out and say, oh, I have an idea. Let me quickly jot it down and save it. I can put it on my Dropbox now or whatever.
Yeah. You could, and you know, you could transfer, you can very easily transfer that to a board if you want to paint on it.
And that's not to knock traditional media. I still carry a sketchbook around with me everywhere I go too, but.
So so do you have any negatives? This is the end of your product review.
Do I have any negatives? Yeah, Windows sucks, but that's just how it's always been.
Don't go to Pornhub on your Surface. Don't get a virus on your $1,200 Surface.
OS X also sucks, so you know, you just pick whichever you can afford at the time.
Pick which one you're gonna get the virus on.
Exactly.
Josh, no, I'm kidding.
Well, another thing I wanted to say is anyone who's debating getting one of these devices, a Cintiq seems like something that if you have a working illustration studio in your house and you're going to set up a big desktop and have your big Cintiq out, that seems like the way to go. But if you're just the working illustrator, one of these devices, one of the on-the-go drawing devices seems really ideal right now.
I can say this. I as someone who has used Wacom's and then didn't want to spend the money for a Cintiq, I am very against Wacom after the fact. I think a lot of people see Wacom as like this big thing, almost like people see Macs as like the thing to get. Go buy a Unova. Go buy like the Surface Pro. Go buy something that's not a Wacom product because I hate them. I think that Wacom got enough money to put research and development into higher sensitivity levels. And then they were like, oh, should we share all of this technology with people for a cheap price? No, let's hoard it to ourselves and then boost the price until somebody else comes along and competes against us. And then let's come out with stuff that other people can use at a lower level. I fucking hate Wacom. I'm saying it. That's my product review. 1 star.
If you can get your hands on a Wacom Intuos 4, they're the best drawing tablet out there. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, I get crazy, but yeah, Wacom Intuos are fine.
I have one. It's beautiful. Alan's hot under the collar, everybody.
It's been a tough week. What?
Hot on the trail of Gold Star is what I was gonna say, but
no, I'm hot on the trail of I'm getting. We got a lot of news to get through. We're like halfway through the show. I sent some angry emails to a company this week. It's the first time I've had to do it. If you want to be a professional illustrator, I've heard that you'll have to do it. This is not a. Oh man, I don't know what I'm allowed to say because at a certain point things become slander, and there's also facts. And I did sign a contract that I read completely through multiple times. I can just say that a gaming company didn't pay me for a lot of work that I did last year. And The contract said that they pay on release. Well, one of the products was released in September. The other was released in like early November, late October. So it was well over that. It was actually 60 days after release, but it's well over that in any case. And I had sent them emails, and like the art director was replying, but the accounting department wasn't replying at all. And I had sent, I called out to the Hive Mind over on One Fantastic Week and talked to some friends and talked to Todd. And it came down to like they're in breach of contract. And I sent them an email that said, listen, I read through your contract. You're in breach of it. This is the notification. I'm drafting this certified letter I'm going to put in the mail. And I would like this handled immediately, or this is just going to have to go to the next level. And it's ironic, actually. This is crazy to me how things add up sometimes. Did you know that the same day I sent that email, they were coincidentally sending out the payments for artists? It's so crazy. It's weird, right? Man. No, so they emailed me back and said coincidentally they were sending out those payments, and I don't have the money yet, but I have the pay stub. It's apparently going through. They've got like 4 days left.
Well, next week we'll find out if that actually happened.
I sent them another email today, the accounting people, and I'm supposedly getting it tomorrow, because unbeknownst to me, there's a transaction period that apparently takes maybe 2 or 3 business days. I never had that problem when I worked at any other job in the world, but whatever. Well, and I get so furious about this stuff because what actually happens is it's a big company and they're letting things sit inside of an account. That's how PayPal makes money. They let your money sit inside of their account so that they can build interest off of it. And that's why they're not paying you. They're paying everyone else first, and they're building interest off what could be your money. But when it comes down to it, they had printed books with art in it that I did that they didn't own because they didn't pay for it. And after like the 3rd time that I emailed them and hadn't heard anything back, I was ready. And I also, to anyone else out there, I would just immediately start using words. If you are looking for payment, start using words like unprofessional, immediately, settle, and people usually get back to you. And also small claims court, I learned only cost a minimum fee or a maximum fee of like $30.
That's super cheap to sue someone.
Except you have to go physically to, well, you can fill out the paperwork online and mail it. But to do the small claims court, you have to be in the county of the defendant, which I think is kind of bullshit. So if I had this problem with like a publishing company up in New York, I would be just screwed because
you have to go all the way out there.
Yeah, and the time it took me to get a flight and a hotel to go through a small claims court, and yeah, maybe I could also get granted those fees, but that's not a guarantee. So if that's happening, just start sending some angry emails and pretend that you're going to, or find a way to get them in breach of contract. This is a lot of stuff that I've been looking up. I'm really passionate about it now.
Yeah, you should be. I mean, this is your livelihood. I think every artist should start educating themselves on the legality behind their work.
Well, I had a lot of people reach out and say, like, this is shitty. I'm sorry that I'm tired, and I'm sorry of gaming companies and publishing companies that do this shit. And it's like, I guess because when you think of things, you're only thinking of them like personally to you. You're not thinking like, oh wait, there's actually 100 other artists, 100 other artists that they're not paying, just like they're not paying me right now. And maybe I'm just the 10% that are that's emailing them angrily. Maybe everyone else is a little scared. And I understand it. Courts and threats are scary.
Yeah, but it's your position to threaten them with that once they're in breach of the contract. So what were the steps you took once you realized, for people who may be in the same situation? Yeah,
so the contract that I had signed to take the work, this isn't. So the art director was very nice. He's a very nice person. He explained to me, it is pay on release. And I agreed to take that pay on release when I signed the contract. But there's some fine print in there that I wasn't quite aware of. For instance, if you find somebody this is their contract. If you find them in breach or they find you in breach, you have to send a written notice by certified USPS mail carrier. Didn't even know that was a thing. Look it up. It's cool. It just basically means that someone has to sign for it to even get their hands on the letter. And if it's serving someone, basically, that's how you serve someone. And it just proves that they got it. And I had to wait 10 days after they received that in order for them to be in breach. What I would say is like, look over your contracts really carefully, because I had never even considered that before, like that they would even have 10 days to somehow remedy something or develop some sort of defense against that. You know, people can do a lot in 10 days. They could totally, like, if I had not timed it right, they could have, you know, deleted all of my art out of PDFs or something like that.
10 days is a lot.
And so I did that. I let them know. Here's something important. If you're talking to someone on a digital network, so you know, if you're in a job or if you're at school, you have to go up the chain of command. It's like if you have a problem, you talk to the teacher, and then if they can't solve it, you talk to the principal. If they can't solve it, you talk to the superintendent. Job is like supervisor, manager, owner, right?
Yeah.
Except when you're sending an email, you can just CC everybody in the company. So do
Absolutely.
that. So like if you're getting screwed over and no one's replying, find everyone's email and then CC the crap out of them so that everyone knows, and then put people's names in there and be like, hey, this person, you're being very unprofessional. I've tried to email you 3 times. That's what I did. It's just CC everybody.
That's what I did today at work. I CC'd everyone in the company on every email I sent. And you know, I got great feedback.
Yeah, I think you should. Why not? Anyway, so that's a step I took. I drafted the formal letter, which is basically just saying that you're in breach of contract, and posted the contract in there along with my invoices again. Learn how to make invoices. Very important. If you don't know how to make invoices, email us, hangingoutpodcast@gmail.com. I'll teach you. Or I'll post a blank invoice somewhere.
You know, that can maybe be some future Patreon material or some maybe business templates.
Well, or just look up how to make an invoice. Because if you don't send an invoice, then no one's going to pay you. You can't just say, where's my money? You have to send an official invoice with the finished artwork. So that's a step. You know, that's just some of the steps I took. And then you have to have like your tax ID numbers. You have to have routing numbers to your bank. Make sure you have all that stuff. And one thing that I learned is go ahead and keep a notebook of all this. So I keep individual mailboxes and folders on my computer. So like if I get a job, let's say I get a job, it's like paint this cover of a dragon. Then I make a folder called dragon, and then I put everything, including the emails, the contracts, the PDFs, the sketches, and the finished work. I put it all in the same folder. And that way I just know where to find it.
Yes, man. The business episode. And that's another ongoing theme that we've learned from the guys we've had on is one of the challenges they took on was learning the business aspects because they just wanted to paint, but they all wanted to also be their own illustrator. And that's, I think, you're doing it very swimmingly, I would say. You've fallen into stride with the business side of illustration.
Well, I feel like I can only be my own boss because I work really poorly with other people. So like if for instance you're 5 months late in paying me, there's just I'm not having it, you know?
No,
like if you owe me something. And I'm the same way. Like if I were working at a Chick-fil-A and somebody was like, "Hey, you didn't make this sandwich right," and I know I did, I just start yelling at someone.
You've yelled at everyone that I've seen.
That's true.
Well,
no, I'm not that bad, but I have if I know I'm in the right, I have a very limited patience, and so I know that I have to be. So yeah, when you say I go through things swimmingly, I think it's more that like I like to get my hands dirty so that I can make all of my mistakes before I'm like at the ball game and can't drop the ball, you know?
Right. You at least have a strong interest in learning and mastering that side of it because you understand the full picture.
And we were talking to Dave last week, and he was like, yeah, I made the book. I had no idea how to make the book, but that was interesting. That was fun. But then I got into the whole business printing and shipping thing, and that was a whole different thing.
Right? That's something we talked about it a little with him, but we didn't directly address is that guy is an amazing artist, but also he did all of that by himself, him and Dan, all of the business side of that, which is insane.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting on that's something I would like to have Sam Flegel on about, is talking to his business side of things, like when he did his book, because he posted about that. I also want to have Alan Panikel on one day to talk about. I hope they're not listening, because now I've already asked them. This isn't how I want to ask them. We also have Dan Dos Santos coming on in March. Yeah, March. He told us March if anyone's interested. And Dan Dos Santos is like, he's been doing this for so long that he is incredibly solid about the business of illustration, from invoices to scheduling to management. And that's something I really want to talk to him about.
I'm looking forward to that conversation. Exciting dude.
Yeah. What else happened to me? Oh yeah. Yeah, I got my cover brief, which was neat. So I'm gonna be working on that along with some Gold Star stuff. I did post. Yeah, I'm gonna be releasing the Patreon this week, actually. So look out for that. I'll post it maybe in the page over there if you guys are interested, and you can just see some background work. I actually have been posting the progress shots from my last 3 paintings on the Discord for that.
Right, I've seen those in the Discord.
And I'm trying to work on setting up I need to set up a Dropbox where you can get the high-res files. Yeah, I've been having fun with that too. I've got some suggestions that need to go into effect. So like between getting ready for, so Todd, I'm Todd's assistant. So I got to get him ready for Emerald City. That's been a shit ton of printing. I'm doing Gold Star, and then I got the cover brief. So I got to start on that. And I did the logo for my friend, his band. Right. So last week was really full. I'm actually surprised I got as much done as I did, because last week I finished a painting, started another one, took a left turn, and still managed to come out on top of that, I think. And then this week is, as I look ahead to this week, it's exactly the same. Like I'm gonna be hitting those 12-hour days again.
That's exciting, though.
Yeah, I like it. It means that you know, when you're sitting in the studio printing and rushing and packaging and blah blah blah, and then handling contract shit with this company, and then coming back, like when you actually take that deep breath and start painting again, you can actually get lost in it, because it's something you wanted to be doing rather than something you have to be doing.
It is. I've found the same when I sit down to paint, sink into it. Like today, the day went by very fast, but it was all work, and my mind was consumed, but not on anything I was extremely interested in besides work. But when you sit down and paint, you just become consumed in it. So I want to talk about with your new painting that you're working on right now, just quickly, that red figure you've got going on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the direction that's going in.
Yeah, I still need to make a tutorial about, you know, my friend Bruce, who we have a critique group that Bear's a part of, but never posts in it. It's okay.
Yay.
No, I have a critique group. Josh Hass started it just between some very close personal friends. And our friend Bruce Bernese commented and was like, you know, the gradient maps you're using are great. They're a tool, but I think you're relying too much on them. And in a way, he was right. You know, in the very early process of the drawing, it's a woman. I'm not going to get too into it because I really like it. I think people are going to find it interesting. And I had pressed a button on the gradient maps I didn't mean to press, and the entire scheme changed into like gray and one color red, and it looked so nice. And so what I did is I fully rendered it in black and white, and then pressed the gradient map button again, and then called it finished. But that wasn't what I should have done. What I should have done was do the gradient map in the beginning and then say, okay, now let me go and render it. Because, I don't know, I just have a lot of fixing to do. The gradient maps are really impressive. I like them. I like what they can do. They can really throw you a curveball to dig yourself out of. And I know deep in my brain's heart that they are a really amazing tool, but it's like a wild horse that I've yet to fully wrangle. Like every time I get close, it keeps getting away from me, but I'll eventually get on top of it in a totally non-sexual way.
Oh, yes.
So
very quickly, I hope. Well, it reminds me of a scene from high school when I went to one of my friends' garages with another friend, and they're playing drums together and teaching each other. And there's a bongo set up next to the drum kit, and one guy was wailing on the bongo the whole time, and the other guy was just every now and then hitting the bongo in the middle of one of his drum solos. And he said to the other guy, I know that sounds cool and all, but try to just incorporate that every now and then as a nice little touch, and then use the kit to say everything else. And it makes a lot of sense that these are just tools, and the pitfall can be getting into that filter gallery in Photoshop, getting into the gradient maps and the hue and the saturation. And there's supposed to be things that just kind of even out the image or you use for adjustments. Or
right.
I really enjoy how you use them for the sketches, but once you start to rely on them too heavily, it does start to cripple your image.
Well, I think for this one especially, I had never done just a 2-color scheme as a finished product before.
Mm-hmm.
So this one was weird for me, and you're right. Yeah, I did lean on it too. Well, I have a problem that I may have talked about before where I think some people are smart and I'm not, but some people, they find something new, right? Or they find something interesting and they just slowly edge into it, right? You're like, let me test this out first. Let me see how I like it. And me, I'm just like I'm jumping headfirst into the pool. I want to be totally submerged. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, throw me in. I want to learn to swim right there. And what it comes out to is a lot of bad artwork. But at the same time, that's also how I learned to paint. When I heard about oil paint, I just I spent like $300 on oil paint. I was like, this is what I want to do. And my first like 20 paintings were just terrible. I'll never show those to anybody. Same with digital. I was like, digital painting, I'm gonna buy this giant machine for $700. And then when it was a lot of money, and then start painting on that. And I don't know, it's worked.
Hey, work comes out of work itself, right?
I know, and it's weird because I know that it's not a good part of me. I know it's not a good idea, but I also know that if I were just edging into something, like if I did something, let's say I use the gradient map very sparingly. Let's say I finished a painting normally and then threw the gradient map on there at like a 20% opacity, okay?
Right.
I was like, okay, that works fine. I would then be incredibly timid to ever push it further, I think, just knowing myself. I want to ruin a lot of things first.
Yeah, most of my sketches for painting start with a really normal sketch, and then I start filling in some of the color, and then I totally ruin it with all the filters and gradient maps that I can. And then I work on top of that and get my real sketch going.
Yeah. No, I feel like you're different though. I feel like you naturally edge into things better than I do. Like you research things. Like you probably read some of the manual. You've probably looked up stuff like instructions on Photoshop.
I have, just because I think it's a beautiful program and I love the people that wrote it, and I'm a technical guy.
And like, yeah, I watched tutorials when I learned to paint, but also I was still, I don't know.
Well, I'm the same. I'm much the same. And like Squarespace, for example, I've read very minimally on that. I have a strong background in internet technology, but I didn't know anything about Squarespace. I just learned it by breaking my own website 100 times.
It's true. Oh man, there's nothing worse than when we had those old WordPress. There's nothing worse than not being able to load your own website and then having to download the registry and have fix it manually. When Todd, I knew I had to change it. Todd, when I managed his website, it was a WordPress, and I downloaded a plugin that totally shattered the website. And I'm sitting here like, oh my God, this is when I don't really know anything about this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I fix this? What do I do? And then I just download the registry, and I was just praying that it worked, and it did. And It just makes my heart pound right now.
Right. That's right. Why I recommend everyone to use Squarespace or something similar if you don't have a strong internet background. I'm working on a WordPress project right now, and it is a nail biter. Let me tell you.
Something Pete told me. WordPress is 100% the way to go if you know how to program with CSS.
Oh, it's great. It's wonderful technology, but you have to be a techie. You got to know what you're doing, and it takes a lot of extra time reading and learning.
Right. You know, there's very few things. I am a believer that intelligence only gets you intelligence and not inbred, but bred natural skill gets you only so far. And you can, I like to believe I can learn how to do anything because that's what makes me happy and makes me feel confident. But there's things that I just really don't want to take the time to learn, like CSS. I'm never going to learn that because I don't want to put time to it.
Right? And that's fine. And it's a very complicated thing. It's a whole new language.
Right. And some people are like, wow, I really like the idea of web design. And you really need to be reading CSS instead of, well, you need to be doing Squarespace plus that. But
oh, yeah. What's going on, Alan? It's been a great start to the year. We've got a ton of paintings behind us. And, you know, we've both painted quite a bit these first 1.5 months.
Yeah, I'm doing the 1 week paintings, man. 1 week paintings. This week's going to be hard. The next 2 weeks because I have to start on that big cover at the same time finishing my quota. So
we're on par, 52 paintings.
I don't know if I'm going to do that.
Everybody else in 52 paintings. If you're a musician, you know, 52 singles, that'll work.
365 songs.
365 songs. That's all we ask for.
You can write a song.
If you're a sculptor, one sculpture a week, that'll work.
If you're Duncan, if you can get a sculpture done in the next 10 years, that'll be pushing it.
You know, if you're a fiber artist, keep it up.
If you're Josh, keep doing exactly what you're doing. That's great. You've been doing a painting a week for a very long time now, and we should all be very jealous.
Josh Hass, everyone.
JoshHass.com.
Find him everywhere. He's great.
He's great. He's only getting better. We've officially run out of things to talk about. That's only the past. That's not what's going on right now. I gotta DM a game, I think. I gotta play Dungeons and Dragons in like 20 minutes. I'm not ready.
You're ready, man. You're a natural.
Not ready. I'm not ready.
You're gonna go DM. Kelsey's still in class. I got another good solid hour of painting.
You gotta jump on the Discord and listen to me.
I will. I'll hop on and
voice.
I'll listen while I paint.
Something I was thinking about is you know what we should do? Hanging out without a G, HANGIN podcast at hangoutpodcast@gmail.com. I wanted people to write us questions. I want a segment of the show to be question answer, like advice.
That's a great way to wrap up the show, I think. Please hit us with your questions. hangoutpodcast@gmail.com.
If you're an art student, if you think your question's dumb, if it's smart, if you want to know what kind of turkey Bear buys at the grocery store and what he can do with it, I want you to ask us questions. And if we don't know the answer, we will actually, that'll give us drive to either reach out to someone or get someone on the show that can answer that question.
Absolutely. Give us some direction. If you're a family member and you want to support us, make up an email and send us a question so we feel kind of prideful about it at least.
None of my family has watched the podcast. None of them will watch the podcast. And I'm kind of thankful for that.
Well,
what? I'm very embarrassed all the time about most things.
That's fine. We all are. That's why we're artists. We don't know how to do anything.
That's true.
Except create.
That's, I actually don't know if a single thing you said in that sentence was true.
I had a tough time finding what job would make me happy in the meantime while I paint. And what I really needed to focus on what was something that I could become absorbed in, both in the subject matter and the work, and that would feed into my art and provide for my future. And it just so happens that my wife is a special education teacher. These people work with kids with disabilities, and I'm able to use my creative talents in service of that. So I can be in the zone all day at work with some passion behind it, and I can come home and be passionate about my personal work. And
Passionate about the podcast.
that was key. That was key, everybody.
Pod keys, actually.
And all of that money is going straight to the podcast. So thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for hanging out. That's it. That's our show. We talked about some art. We talked about some business. Once again, any questions, hangingoutpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. Bear, what's our Facebook called?
It's Hanging Out Podcast on Facebook. We also have a group on Facebook. Find us there and chat with us, please.
Anything else?
Oh, our Patreon, don't forget it.
We have a Patreon. We made a video for it.
He's AlanMooresArt.com. I'm BearIslesArt.com.
I'm exhausted. I gotta go get to work.
We all gotta go get to work. Go
See
paint,
you
guys.
next week.
We'll be here.